to Poise Joie here on YouTube, where I do just one mini reading. Sometimes my work, if I'm promoting something, usually somebody else's. I try to share poetry from all over the world. Tall order, I know. So it's kind of like an introduction to world poetry, if you can even call it that. Go back through the channel, and if you find something you like, um, feel free to read it in its original language. I read translations on here. Usually I read the poem in English. That's the language I'm most familiar with, and it's the language of the internet. But if you, like I said, if you're more from, if you know the original language, put the translation and the original language side by side and enjoy both art forms. They're often two different things, although we're thankful for them both. I thought I would do something different today because I had a little bit of an epiphany the other day. I was watching Gone with the Wind for, I don't know, the blue millionth time. And, um, you know, I hadn't watched it in years and years though. But there was that whole scene where Melanie is having the baby and she's going to die on the in childbirth. She doesn't die in childbirth, but she almost does. Like, she is always sickly after that. She never fully recovers. And the Confederate Army has pulled out of Atlanta, so there they're stuck. And as they're leaving, the Confederate Army tells Scarlett O'Hara, "The only thing we can tell you to do is refugee south." But she can't because Melanie's in labor. And we all know what um, Yankee soldiers did to Confederate ladies when they found them abandoned by the army and their families, etc. And you know, they did what every soldier does in war. Uh, is that, you know? I mean, it's kind of common. That's like the first go to for a man when he finds a woman, whether it's war or not, you know? So here she's facing this, but she can't leave. Melanie's in labor and she's having a difficult labor, right? It never explicitly says that, but you get the idea. Movies back in the day, they didn't spell everything out. They gave you just enough for you to draw that conclusion for yourself. Because Gone with the Wind was like 1939, and it was a true period movie. The way they make period movies and period TV shows today are not true period movies. They dress up and cosplay that period as far as the clothes, sort of, kind of, because even that they don't even get. And then they superimpose today's social problems onto that time period, and they're like, here's your period piece, and we'll call it the Gilded Age, and we'll call it whatever, and have these people semi dressed up like that time period, superimpose today the social issues of 2025, 2026 on it, and call it a period piece. That's not a period piece. But in 1939, when they made Gone with the Wind, they made a true period piece because it is about the Civil War, and it shows the social constructs of the 1860s. And it does not spell everything out for you. It gives you just enough hints for you to draw conclusions yourself if you have the education and the sense, the common sense to see it. And so this is where my own common sense didn't lock in until I watched it as an adult. Because I have watched it so many times as a child, I basically had it memorized. But I had an epiphany with this scene because there they are. And Scarlett sends Prissy off to find the doctor because Mellie's in trouble. And the doctor is still in town. He hasn't left with the Confederate Army because, you know, he's tending to all the Confederates. Well, the soldiers of both sides. He's taking care of the soldiers of both sides that are wounded. So she sends Prissy off to go get the doctor to try to save Mellie. And Prissy doesn't bring back the doctor. Prissy comes singing back. She comes back singing. And did what we would call dilly-dallying. Now, I'm from Appalachia, so we still use that term. But what we would call dilly-dallying. She's just like lollygagging, and dude, she's not. She's just walking. She's not even in a hurry. Do, 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 do. She's singing and she's kicking kicking rocks and not even in a hurry. When I was a kid, I read this scene entirely differently. I thought because the Union Army is shelling Atlanta, boom, 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 boom. You know, they're dropping bombs on it. Not bombs. They didn't have bombs. They're dropping cannon fire on Atlanta, and she had to walk through that to get to the doctor and then walk back to Scarlet. So in my head as a child, I thought Prissy is traumatized. So that's why she's disassociated. And she's do kicking rocks and not she's just walking, not even urgent. And she gets back to Scarlet and Scarlet gets mad because she's disassociated, which is a perfectly understandable reaction to being shelled. But you've got a woman that's dying in childbirth, right? So she's like smack to bring her back to the present. Like, you can fall apart later. Right now we have a woman dying in childbirth. You have to help me. I know the situation is horrific that we're in right now, but you can fall apart later when Melanie's not dying anymore, you know, which is also a perfectly valid reaction. Not in keeping with Scarlett's usual behavior, because Scarlett is a narcissist. We're not supposed to like Scarlett. This is something that people miss about that movie. You are not supposed to like Scarlett. She is a narcissist. There is nothing nice about a woman who will steal her sister's husband just for his money. Well, not her. She wasn't married. Her sister wasn't married to the man yet, but they had been sweethearts for like forever, since they were children. And they were engaged. There is nothing nice about a woman who will do that just to get his money. Scarlett was all about her own survival, and she was all about saving Tara the plantation. She was there was nothing. You're not supposed to like her. She is a symbol of resilience. I'll give you that. She does know how to survive. She's not a good person. And the whole point of the whole point of the story and the whole point of the movie is this is a person you're not supposed to like. People miss that. But anyway, so I always thought, you know, that this is just one of those scenes where she's like, you know, snap to it. Right, you know, you can fall apart later because we're in the middle of this traumatic situation and we need to survive this. We need to get Melly through this. But as an adult, I saw it differently. And what was my epiphany moment? I realized what Prissy was singing. She comes walking home from the doctor and she is singing. I recognize the tune. She is singing My Old Kentucky Home. And of course, I recognize the tune because I watch the Kentucky Derby every year, right? The Kentucky Derby is my thing. So how it took me like till I was an adult to put this together. That she's singing the Kentucky Derby. Why did it take me that long? Because she's singing a verse we never sing today. She's singing a verse that, as far as us today, my generation and forward, we didn't know it existed. In 1939, they did. But like my generation and forward, possibly the generations before me, I know I was talking to my mom about this, and she didn't know about it either. Said she's a late boomer, so like, or Jones generation, she says. So like, we didn't know this verse existed, and it's the third verse of the song. So we always sing the first two verses and not the third verse of the song. And what Prissy is singing is over and over the same line. She says, "A few more years for to tote the weary load." You know, they call her Prissy because she's got that high tone voice. "A few more years for to tote the weary load." I assume that's why they call her Prissy. And that's the only line she sings over and over while she's dilly-dallying on her way back home. And I was like, but why my old Kentucky home? So pause movie, Google, you know, it's like, what's going on here? And then, you know, of course, then I discover, well, it's this line from this verse we never sing anymore. And then, ba-boom, it all comes together for me because it turns out that my old Kentucky home, lo and behold, that I never knew, was originally an anti slavery ballad. Who knew, right? So when so when Scarlett sees her walking down the road kicking pebbles and taking her sweet old time to come back with no doctor, and she sees, hears her singing My Old Kentucky Home, few more years for to tote the weary load. What she hears is this slave that I own, that I sent to go do this thing, is singing this song, this this anti-slavery song, while she's a traitor. And how dare you, my property? So smack, it changes the entire scene. And actually, that point of view, seeing the scene from that point of view, fits Scarlett's character better than the way I originally saw it. And then, of course, I understand the scene better. It fits Scarlett's character better. It fits the movie better. Um, it fits the time period better. All because I realized um, that she's singing some line from a verse that we don't even sing anymore. And then that unlocked a whole other realization for me, because every year the Kentucky Derby comes around and there's controversy about the song My Old Kentucky Home and about how it's racist because the first line says, well, originally it used the N word. Originally, Stephen Foster used the N word. And then they changed it to darkies, and then they changed it to people, and I think they've changed it back to darkies. Every year the lyrics change, and every year there's controversy about whether they should cancel the song completely because it's a racist song. But it's not a racist song, because it's not, and it's the fact that people think it is shows that they're as in the dark, and their education has been as shortchanged as mine was, because it's an anti-slavery song and it's written from the point of view of the slaves. And the key is all in that last verse that nobody ever sings today. The last verse is the verse that ties it all together and tells you what it is, and from whose viewpoint you're seeing. That it's not just some, oh, I love Kentucky so much song, that it had a much bigger point to it than just, oh, I love Kentucky so much. The reason why this slave is singing about, oh, I love Kentucky so much, my old Kentucky home far away, is because he had to leave Kentucky to not be a slave anymore. And he's singing about the day when there will be no slaves at all. It's an anti slavery ballad. And we have missed the whole point of the whole song, just like we've missed the whole point of Gone with the Wind, just by misunderstanding. We think we have to hero worship Scarlet, when the point is there is such a thing in literature called the anti hero, where the main character is somebody we're not supposed to like, just like in the name is escaping me right now. Oscar Wilde. Dorian Gray. Dorian Gray. Dorian Gray is one of those characters. Everybody thinks they're supposed to like Dorian Gray. You're not. You're supposed to despise him, and that is the whole point. Whenever you finish that novel, Oscar Wilde's Dorian Gray, you are supposed to be disturbed to the very depths of your soul by that book. You're not supposed to like it. It's the same way with Gone with the Wind. Sometimes a story is meant to teach you lessons, and you're not supposed to hero worship the main character. People assume just because somebody is a main character of a book or a movie that they have to like them, and then they end up missing the whole point. And that's what they do with Gone with the Wind. And for some reason, at some point in the past, somebody decided that the third verse of My Old Kentucky Home needed cut. And when they did, people started misunderstanding the song and labeling it racist, when it's actually the very opposite. Because when Stephen Foster wrote it, he wrote it to be the very opposite of that. He was saying free the slaves. He was writing it from a former slave's point of view, saying free the, saying I miss my old Kentucky home because Kentucky is beautiful, but I had to leave it because I was a slave, and I long for the day when everybody is free from slavery and there will be no more slavery. And it was part he was part of the abolitionist movement. So people have missed the whole point of the song and then continually pushing to cancel it because they misunderstand one line in the first verse and they don't realize that the third verse even exists. It's like get on Google and learn some stuff like I did. And thank you to the to her name escapes me too. The author of Gone with the Wind and the people who made the movie because that's what unlocked it for me because and they had her sing my old Kentucky home in that scene because they knew that the audiences watching in 1939 would make that connection that it took me my whole life to finally make. But they knew that their audiences in 1939 would make that connection right away and go, that it would just be the most common sense thing for them to get to. Just hearing that Prissy singing that one line over and over, they would go, "We know what this scene is all about." But it took me my whole life to get there. I'm a little bit ashamed by that. Anyway, for that reason, I decided that today's or this month's poem, if you want to call it that, is going to be my old Kentucky home so that we can share the entire thing as Stephen Foster wrote it. Well, not exactly as Stephen Foster wrote it, because the version that I found online, the language is slightly modernized, so it's a little bit easier to understand it, but pretty closely to the way Stephen Foster wrote it, and it includes the third verse. So, okay. Um, and it says that the original title of the song was Poor Uncle Tom Good Night because it was inspired by Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin, which is another book that people want to cancel because it does have tropes in it that are offensive to us today. But when it was written, um, let's just say the slaves would have never gotten freed when they did if it hadn't been for Harriet Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. When she wrote that book, it turned the mindset of an entire society. The whole world went, what a horrible life those slaves lead. And it changed minds on every level of society. So the slaves would not have regained freedom when they did if she hadn't written that book. So you can call it racist and try to cancel it now, but I think that would be inappropriate. Um, because you have to view things within the context of the historical society in which they were born. And if you view it within the context of the society in which it was born, it was actually extremely progressive and helpful. It's just like people today trying to cancel Dances with Wolves because it's problematic. Yes, it is. I could say this as a partly indigenous person. Yes, it is problematic. But in 1990, when it was first released, it was revolutionary. And it made so much progress for indigenous people. You have to view things in the historical context in which they were released, in which they were written. Because if you don't, if you try to view them within the social context that you are in, you will miss the whole point. You cannot take things and smash them into today's social issues and today's social viewpoints. You will lose the whole point. You will, you know, you you got to take things into consideration. You got to go. It's problematic now because we have come so much further than that. But back then, this is how we got where we are now. And that means something. That matters. And for that reason, it should be held in a certain matter of respect because we would never have gotten where we are now without this thing that we now find offensive. We would never have gotten here without getting there first. And for those reasons, even though those things are still problematic, in their time period they were revolutionary, and therefore we should hold them in respect because we had to get there first before we could get here. You understand what I'm saying? I know it's controversial and sticky, and people will probably jump all over me for this, but that's the truth of the matter. You can't get where you are now without breaking the other boundaries first. But anyway, here we go. Verse 1, My Old Kentucky Home by Stephen Foster. The sun shines bright in the old Kentucky home. 'Tis summer, the darkies are gay. The corn tops ripe and the meadows in the bloom, while the birds make music all the day. Young folks roll on the little cabin floor, all merry, all happy and bright. By and by, hard times come a knocking at the door. Then my old Kentucky home, good night. Weep no more, my lady, oh, weep no more today. We will sing one song for the old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home far away. They hunt no more for the possum and the coon on the meadow, the hill, and the shore. They sing no more by the glimmer of the moon on the bench by the old cabin door. The day goes by like a shadow o'er the heart, with sorrow where all was delight. The time has come when the darkies have to part, then my old Kentucky home, good night. Weep no more, my lady, oh weep no more today. We will sing one song for the old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home far away. The head must bow, and the back will have to bend, wherever the darkies may go. A few more days, and the trouble all will end in the field where the sugar canes grow. A few more days for to tote the weary load, no matter 'twill never be light. A few more days till we totter on the road, then my old Kentucky home, good night. Weep no more, my lady, oh weep no more today. We will sing one song for the old Kentucky home, for my old Kentucky home far away. Now, it's not real obvious, is it? You have to think about it. Because it couldn't be real obvious. He was writing an anti slavery song that people who were still enslaved could sing without their masters catching on, at least at first. So he couldn't be blatant with it, but it's there. All that talking about having to leave, and then a few more days for to tote the weary load. No matter 'twill never be light. A few more days till we totter on the road. Then my old Kentucky home, good night. See, he's talking about running away, and he's talking about the time when there will be no slavery at all. It's not blatant. He doesn't say, the day when all my people will be free. He's not blatant with it because you couldn't be blatant with it. But it's there. And that's what Prissy was singing on her way home. A few more days for to tote the weary load. Scarlett was prescient enough to pick up on it. Anyway, it was an epiphany for me because I wasn't taught, and apparently my mom wasn't either. So somewhere between 1939 and the 70s, people stopped teaching about what this song really meant. And things started getting confused. But it's there in the lyrics if you think about it. And it's there in its original name. The fact that he called it Uncle Tom's Cabin. Poor Uncle Tom Goodnight. It's an anti-slavery ballad. There's nothing racist about it. Not in its historical context. Which is the point. But anyway, y'all can come for me if you want, but I'm just pointing something out there. And hopefully, for those who are deeper thinkers, they will come to realize that there's no need for the controversy every year at the Kentucky Derby. And The rest of the people, I don't know. Some people just like drama and controversy, I guess. But I hope you enjoyed our poem for this month, and I hope you will come back for more Poésie Joie in the future. We read poems from all over the world for people from everywhere, and I hope you find something you like on this channel and come back for more another time. I wish good things for everyone, everywhere, all the time, and don't a dog go hunt you.